Terry Blackburn here. I have a property portfolio worth over £10 million. I've built and sold multiple companies, some in seven-figure deals. I wrote two successful books, one won awards all over the world. All of these awards behind me are national and international awards for some of my companies. Coach people one-on-one, and I run masterminds. Now, if you like what I talk about in this session, if you listen to my podcast, you follow us on Instagram, you follow the YouTube page, if you like what I talk about and I resonate with you and you can relate to me, jump on my website, which is terryblackburnproperty.com. All of the different services that I have is on there. I'd love to work with you and I'd love to help you get to where you want to be, whether that's in property, whether that's in business, whether it's in sales, goal setting, whatever it is that you want to achieve and want to learn. I'm your man. Enjoy the rest of the episode and speak soon.
Hi and welcome to the Rags to Riches show with myself, Terry Blackburn. So today's episode is all about how you can get involved in property and how you can speed up your property investing with little to no money. Because there's definitely ways that you can do this. Not a lot of people talk about these, and some people that do talk about these don't do them themselves. They've never done them themselves. And there's plenty blaggers and bluffers in this property education space. We all know that, right? So let's actually be real and let's actually talk about some things that you can actually do, okay? So first thing is you could joint venture with somebody, right? So, a joint venture, a JV, does not need to be 50-50 in terms of you put in 50% of the money each. You do 50% of the work each and do 50% of the profit. That's not necessarily how a JV works, okay? I've done JVs where I've put zero money in, the JV partner has put all of the money in, and I've done the work. That's a fair trade-off. If they bring the money and I bring the work and the skills, then we'll split profit 50-50. That's a fair joint venture. So I didn't have to there's been many deals, I didn't put a penny in. I just put my time in. I put my skill set and my experience. I, for example, found the deal, managed the project, managed the builders, and managed the exit, managed the sale of that property. So the investor didn't do anything apart from put the money in. So a joint venture is a legitimate way to get into property with little to no money. You might want to approach friends and family. If you've got people who've got money, maybe it's someone older who doesn't have the time to do property. Maybe it's someone who doesn't know how to do property, doesn't have the skill set to do property. They're just too busy doing whatever else it is that they're doing. Or they've just got a load of money and they want to diversify. They want to help you. There could be loads of reasons, right? But joint ventures are a great way to get involved in property where someone else brings the money and you bring everything else. And I suppose that links to point two, which is, I suppose, first of all, if you're really, really new to all of this, then you need to educate yourself first. 100% you do, because, you can't approach a joint venture partner or potential JV partner or somebody with a load of money if you don't have a clue what you're doing, because that would be reckless of you and it would be foolish of them to do any business with you if you don't know what you're talking about, of course. So if you don't have much money, you could simply educate yourself. You can educate yourself for relatively low cost. Podcasts like this one, books, things that don't necessarily cost a load of money you can do. You can get a mentor if you want to level that up, do masterminds, do programs where you're going to learn a lot before you do this. And these aren't, they're not that expensive. A few £100 a month isn't expensive in comparison to how much you will learn. As long as you go to a good educator, someone like myself, of course. Don't be spending fortunes where you run to the back of the room and pay somebody 20 grand and they don't teach you much. And we all know who I'm talking about, right? So educate yourself first. You can do that relatively low cost, and you can do that through proper mentors and courses and programs. And that's relatively low cost. And don't look at that as a cost. Look at it as an investment. It's an investment in yourself. They say that the best money you'll ever spend is money spending on yourself. Investing in yourself and your self-development and education, because when you do that, like I've done coaches and programs and I've been mentored before, and some of the things that I've learned have literally stuck with me for the rest of my life, and I've still got them now, and they've impacted and changed me for the rest of my life. And some lessons I've learned will stick with me forever. Some things I've learned from podcasts have stuck with me forever. Some things from books, like that educating yourself. I don't think I need to talk about that anymore, because the fact that you listen to a podcast tells me that you're interested in that. But you get it, right? Little to no cost, educate yourself. It's not a cost, it's an investment, okay? So other things that you can do is raising money from angel investors, funds, venture capitalists, and all of these things. That doesn't cost any money. Yes, it costs time, and yes, you've got to be relatively skilled, and you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to be educated in order to raise money from people. But as you know from previous podcasts and probably from my social media, I raise a lot of money in an angel investment basis on a fixed rate of return or joint ventures. I've raised well over £2 million in these methods. That's from joint ventures as well as fixed rates of return. And you can do this in volume if you're credible, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, and you've got a track record. It's obviously easier it's harder at the start when you don't have those things. But even if you started raising £10,000-20,000 from friends and family, and you give them a return on their money, for example, if you lent £20,000 from somebody, you paid them back 22, but you used that 20 to make 35, make that 20 into 35, you can pay them the 2 back, and then you're off again, right? So you've just got to think creatively. And what I say to a lot of the guys that I mentor and a lot of the guys in my mastermind is, this is a mindset shift, right? But there is millions of people in this world with millions in the bank. Now think about that a second. There is millions of people with millions in the bank. There's probably hundreds of millions of people with 50 grand in the bank. I don't know the stat, of course. I'm guessing, but I'm pretty confident on that guess. That's true, right? So if that is true, all you need to do is find 5 people to give you 10 grand each. You got your first flip deposit. You're rocking and rolling. Realistically, in your phone book and everybody that you know, do you think there's 5 people in there that will lend you 10 grand each? I'm pretty confident that most people, the answer is yes. Okay. So all of this nonsense where they say, I can't get into property because I don't have enough money. I can't get into property for this reason or that reason. Like, half it's a mindset block. It's you doubting yourself and your ability. And what happens when you tell yourself you can't raise money? You don't raise money. What happens if you tell yourself that I don't have any rich friends? None of your friends will lend you money, right? Like, I didn't have rich friends. I've got some rich friends now, but I didn't have rich friends at the start, and I was raising money. Network, I suppose, is one of these points as well. It's network, not just to get around money, but educate yourself. Networking helps with. It helps with, you might sit beside somebody at a networking event, right, who's more experienced than you, and you might connect with them, get on, become friends. You might end up doing a joint venture with that person because that person might already have money. They might be 4 or 5 steps ahead of you, and they might teach you something. They might, you might be able to go to one of their projects and learn from them on site. They might take you under the wing a little bit. That happens if someone's a little bit older than you and they take a liking to you. They might help you progress. They might do a joint venture with you. They might lend you money. So getting yourself around good people and people who are typically doing more than you in property will definitely help. It's definitely not got no negatives to that. It's only got positives. You might not raise money the first networking event that you go to, and the first person you sit beside, don't be pitching them lenders 100 grand. Right? It's probably not going to go to plan that way. But you get my point. You've got to get yourself around money as much as you can. Network, collaborate, connect, and you're getting yourself on the pitch, right? You can't score the goal if you're not on the pitch. And getting yourself around money, educating yourself, speaking to people about joint ventures, raising money, you're getting yourself on the pitch. At least you've got a chance of scoring the goal. Sitting at home watching Netflix, doing nothing, not taking any action, you're definitely not going to score, right? You're sitting on the sidelines, you're on the bench then, aren't you? Or you're in the bloody changing rooms, never mind the bench. You're definitely not scoring, right, if you're not taking action. So keep that in mind. A couple of other points. If you've got little to no money and you wanted to get into property, if let's say you live in London or you live in somewhere where it's high value properties, you might be looking around the local area and thinking, right, well, I need the average house price is £300,000-400,000. Like, I don't have 25% of that for a deposit. It's too expensive where I live. Simple solution. A couple of my clients that live in London that I coach, and I've helped them buy up north. It's quite simple because the prices are lower. You need 15, 20, 30 grand to buy a low-end property in Newcastle and in the northeast. So you simply go, if you've got a limited budget and not much money, you simply go to a location where the property prices are lower and you can buy more property straight away. It's as simple as that. I don't buy in London, and I've got the money to buy in London, but I wouldn't be buying in London. I think it's too expensive. I think the returns aren't as good, and I can do more volume of deals up north. I buy the northeast and I buy North Wales. I would buy elsewhere if the number's stacked, but for me, those two areas are the best to buy in. So yeah, go after the lower end stock. Depends on your strategy, of course, and there's lots of variables that affect that point, but that's a legit way to get into property. When there's lower barriers to entry, lower capital needed, buying up in lower end areas for sure. That doesn't mean buy like in the roughest part of Newcastle, because I don't do that either. You can still actually get properties up north for like 20 grand. Right, as mad as that is, in the really, really rough areas, that's 20 grand purchase price, right? Do not be buying them. Like, don't go down that route. Tenant profile, terrible. You'll have druggies in there. You'll have crime going on. There's loads of mad stuff, right? And they'll be everywhere. They'll probably be in parts of the northwest as well. So, that doesn't mean buy the shittest properties in the country, but go to a place where your money works better for you. With 20, 30 grand, you can still buy a nice property in the northeast as a deposit. 30 grand down on a 120 grand, 120 grand property, right? You'll still get something half decent. And the last point is, if you want to get into property, is if you buy a residential property, a property to live in, you don't have to put 25% deposit down like you do if it's an investment. You just have to put 5 or 10% down. So if you have a real limited pot, you could buy a residential home, putting 5 to 10% deposit down, doing that property up while you're living in it, and sell it on at a profit to grow your pot. Yeah. And it's tax free. When you sell your residential home, it's tax free. It's not like if you sell an investment home or a second home, you get tax on it, capital gains or corporation tax. When it's your residence, your main residence, it's tax free. So if your pot's really limited, it might be worth buying a property for you or you and your partner that needs work, doing it up, getting a good deal on the purchase price in the first place, haggling a good deal, learn sales, listen to one of my previous podcasts, negotiating, haggle a good deal, do it up, force the value up and sell it on for a profit. And ultimately, you're going to grow your pot of money. That's a legit way to get into property with less money. So those are 6 tips and 6 things that you can do to get into property with little to no money. So thanks for listening. If you know somebody who is really keen to get into property, but they don't have much money, then send this to them, share this podcast with them. On Apple Podcasts or Spotify, there's a share button. Simply send them the link, ask them to give it a listen, and hopefully I can help them just like I've helped you. Send it to your partner, send it to your parents, send it to your brothers, aunties, uncles, cousins, whatever, if they want to get into property too. So thanks for listening. Remember, don't just take notes, take action. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon.